Good morning, students. Welcome to Capstone IS Academy. Let's start with our 6th July 2021 editorials. We all know that editorials are an important part of our UPSC examination, and that's why we are going to look those editorials which have appeared just not in the Hindu paper, but even in other papers. Okay, it's just not about the Hindu paper. Even in other paper, whatever editorial have appeared, we will basically look into those editorial and we'll try to make sure okay, we are able to at least read them, understand them, as well as basically try to make help for our examination. So today the first topic it is about GST. Well, we all know the fact okay, what is GST, why it has been helpful for GST. Okay, so now let's try to understand about the GST. There has been several positive as well as negative about GST. Whenever you read a topic for UPSC, the first thing you should do is try to find out which paper that topic belongs. So this topic will belong to GS2, that is Constitutional and Polity, right? And for this to happen, you need to read UPSC syllabus daily. That's the first job. Reference for this article, it appeared in Economic Times, and that's why it is an important article. I'm not asking you to read Economic Times. You don't do that. That's not your job. That's my job. But since the article appeared in Economic Times, we should study why it is important for our examination. Unit 2, third thing is about keywords. Keywords are very important in your UPSC examination because keyword help you to basically fetch good marks in your examination. Let's try to understand what has been a recent development. First, we are now generating e-way bill. Whenever you want to transport goods from one place to another place, you have to generate an e-way bill. That is happening completely electronically. E-invoices is happening, right? Custom has been linked with the GST portal so that those people who are importing from outside can basically take the advantage of inputs. And we have done a lot of automation. These are the 4 new things that have happened in GST. Now, 4 years have passed when the GST came into picture. Let's try to understand whether the GST was helpful or what is not helpful, why there are still problems with the GST, and how we can solve it. When the GST came 4 years before, this is one of the biggest tax reform in independent India. Why? Because states agreed to come together and subsume their taxes and were ready to bring a single tax. So it is the biggest example of cooperative federalism. What do you mean by cooperative federalism? When the state coordinates with center, when the state works with center, when the states work with each other, when the state work with center, when the states help each other, we call that as cooperative federalism. It was an essay topic 3 years before. That's why it is important. We are moving from competitive federalism to cooperative federalism. Why? Because India is a unified country and all state and center should work together to basically help each other in economic and social development. When the GST came into picture, there were a lot of things that are positive externalities. What do you mean by positive externalities? For an example, when I'm taking a morning walk, my weight is reducing, but I'm also becoming energetic. I'm also becoming healthy. My BP is under control, right? That is what you mean by positive externalities, right? What did help? We brought unified market. We are making the industrial sector competitive. We are removing cascading. What do you mean by cascading? Tax on tax is called cascading. So now for the same product, an industry need not have to pay taxes twice. Before that was a problem. Service tax was there, VAT was there, then some other tax was there. For the same product, they were paying taxes multiple times. And now that will not happen. Another thing is that because of a very strong architecture of the GST, we are able to solve a lot of trouble with the taxes. We are able to collect taxes better, right? We are able to, basically solve the problem of people doing tax avoidance and tax ignorance. A lot of firms have shown interests have been boarded under GST architecture. Every company who knows that if they have to work strongly, if they have to make money in this country, if they have to safeguard themselves from the tax officials, they are coming under GST architecture because now it has become very difficult for them to avoid taxes, right? Tax base have increased. That means when before 10 people were paying taxes, now there are 100 company paying taxes. So tax base have also increased. You see, from 66 lakh to 1.3 crore, almost double the number of companies are, working under GST. Another problem is that it is a destination based tax. That means when you are selling the product, on the basis of that selling point of the product, the tax is calculated. So it is impossible for anyone to play with the tax system. Another important thing is that there is a state called Tamil Nadu, there is a state called Bihar. Bihar is a consumption state, Tamil Nadu is a manufacturing state. In the older tax regime, only those states that were manufacturing or industrial in nature were getting benefited. But now, even those states where the consumption is high or who do not have good manufacturing but are a good consumption is also benefiting them. Several leakages have also been corrected under GST. Now, good we saw, we need to also look at the bad part because we are talking about critical appraisal. We will just not criticize it, but we will try to make sure that that criticism is helpful. One of the things that happened as a part of GST is that state lost their taxation powers. Today, states are not able to generate their own revenue. And we know the fact that states can solve the problem of people better than the union government. Then there are a lot of political controversy. For an example, Tamil Nadu is not getting benefited from GST as compared to Bihar or UP. Then a lot of decision under GST were supposed to be taken by GST Council, where State Finance Minister also the member. Now they are bypassing the GST counseling, going against the idea of cooperative federalism. A lot of tax have subsumed under GST. That means a lot of taxes were removed under GST. So ideally GST, the tax should have increased, but the percentage as a percentage of GDP, that is on decline. Confusion still prevails whether to tax curd, milk, doodh peda, whether to tax milk, ice cream, or chocobar, whether to tax raw leather or Van Heusen leather wallet. So there are still confusion happening under the categorization part of it. Compensation controversy. Please understand, when the states agreed to subsume the taxes, when the state agreed to subsume the taxes, they were guaranteed a compensation. And that compensation is not being given to them today. That's why they are not happy. They are like, we are not able to generate the revenue. We are not able to make the money. On that, we are not getting the compensation. So we are not basically happy with the GST structure. Important products like petrol, diesel, electricity, which generates tremendous amount of money, has been kept out of the GST net. A lot of micro, small and medium enterprises, they are not getting input money because of petrol, diesel, electricity being outside the GST. So it is not helping them. Another problem is that there have been reports of forced entry off into the GST of micro and small firms. I am still a small firm. I do not want to go under GST. I do not have that much money. I cannot pay 18 pay tax, but they have been forced to come under GST. A lot of strain on the small firms. Another problem is that because of the GST architecture, states have lost independence to mobilize more resources. They are not able to generate more revenue. Pandemic is there, ventilator required, oxygen required, masks are required, roads are required. They have to do some schemes. They do not have money because they are dependent on the union government to send them the money. So even after 4 years, one nation, one tax, one market is a distant dream. It's not a complete dream. We still need to work another decade to make sure that states are happy about GST and are generating their revenue out of the GST so that they can be socio economy development of the people of the nation. Clear? Thank you. Next. A very small topic, but a very important topic. 5 years of insolvency and bankruptcy code. In short, we call it IBC. Topic belonged to paper 3, economic development. Article appeared in the Hindu on 2nd of July. Keywords are IBC, asset reconstruction company, stress asset, national company, law tribunal, resolution, liquidation, etc. Now, what is IBC? Now let's try to understand a little bit basic. There is a company. I wanted to manufacture emergency lights. I was doing really well. Suddenly the market changed. The technology changed. My electric emergency light is not being used by anyone. I am in losses. I have taken loan. What do? I go to bank. I tell him, look, sir, I am not a corrupted person. I am not a defaulter. I am not a fraud. I literally want to close my company. Please start the insolvency process. Sell everything out, take your loan. If there is something remaining, give it back to me. That is insolvency. Bankruptcy, when we have already declared, when the court already declared that you're not eligible to pay back your loan because you do not have any money, then that's a bankrupt. Problem, sometimes it's not always about the fraud. The technology changes. The improvement happen, the economic changes. So that's one of the reason. That's one of the reason we should be very, very careful that we should be very, very careful that there should be there should be you know chance for every company to close their assets, okay, to close their company. That's the reason we require insolvency and bankruptcy code. When the decision is valid, they can basically close down with in coordination with the bank. Now let's look at how does IBC help and what are the problems. Let's look at the good point first. First time there were fear in the mind of defaulter. Why? Because if you are purposely defaulting, before what used to happen, they used to go to court, play with the system, play with the banks, play with the code, use the loopholes in the legal system and not pay back the loan. Now you have a insolvency code. Within 3 years, we will liquidate your asset, sell everything and pay back the loan. So the first time in independent India, fear is there in the still in the minds of defaulters and debtors. Those people who have borrowed the loan and those people who have borrowed the loan and purposely not paying back the loan. Recently, when the IBC came into picture, a lot of resolution process helped big companies to close down and bank would recover a lot of money. So big companies with higher recovery for the banks with lower haircut. That means I have given you a loan of 10 lakh and now we are closing at 8 lakh. Before what used to happen is to get only 4 lakh. So lower haircut is happening. So a great expectation have increased about insolvency and bankruptcy code. Banks are finding it easier to hand over national company law tribunal, national company law tribunal mechanism, rather than selling the stress asset to asset reconstruction companies. So they are going for a resolution. They are mutually solving in the issues. Before, what used to happen, they used to give their companies to asset reconstruction company. These are the companies who will try to take over the frauded company or the lost company or the bankrupted company or the insolvent company, and try to reconstruct them, restructure them. But now they are mutually sitting together and they are trying to solve their problem. And moreover, as a this is a very good step in an advanced country. India is becoming a part of those advanced countries where have a very strong IBC mechanism. Please understand, having a good resolution method also bring in investment. Foreign companies would like to have a business in countries like India because they have an IBC code which would make them safe tomorrow if they are going in terms of losses. A lot of successful methods have happened in terms of IBC, but there are still problems. And what are those problems? Let's try to understand. Problem number one, IBC came for a resolution. That means sit together, solve your problem, and basically make whatever money you can make. But today we are going for high level of liquidation. We are selling the assets, which is not a good indicator. We need to resolve the matter. Probably sometimes more loans are required. We need to give them more loans. If the company wants more loans to restart their business, it should be given. Under IBC, that provisions are there. But now it's all going to liquidation. Borrow the money, go for the losses, sell off the assets. All right. Higher recoveries in the beginning is good, but can we maintain that for long? We need to see, right? We need to see. That's why these are still the problem with IBC. Another problem is several court interventions have created a lot of problem in dilution of the architecture. What was IBC? Banks come together, companies come together, they go amicably solve the problem. Now they are going into court. Court is taking its own time. A good example is Supreme Court recently telling 30 days are not enough. This is not good. If the court interfere in the matter of bankruptcy and dilution, then it creates unwanted delays. Because of the COVID-19, because of the COVID-19, government has also put a lot of holidays. Government has also put lot of holidays, which is also not good. Which is also not good. Makes sense, right? You tell me, this is not good, right? If the government interfere with the system, then companies will not trust it, banks will not trust it, the whole system is bound to collapse. Why will they go for resolution? Why will they go for resolution? Please try to understand, right? So this is the problem. This is the problem with insolvency and bankruptcy code. If you want that code to become successful, then bank should, the court should not interfere, government should not interfere, banks and the company should mutually decide. Yes or no? Exactly. The number of NCLT benches are also not adequate. National Company Law Tribunal benches, they are not adequate. So, right? So you have more cases, less number of people, creating a lot of delay. We do not even have manpower. We require resolution professional for it. We don't have them. That's why it's creating a lot of trouble. Okay. Next topic. The Major Port Authorization Act 2021. The Major Port Authorization Act 2021, a brief appraisal. Topic belong to paper 3, that is GS3, Economic Development Infrastructure. The article appeared in Business Line on 30th June. So that's why it is also very, very important. Okay, let's try to understand. India has a coastline of 7,517 kilometers, which includes 9 states and 4 union territories. Very, very important. Which of the following statements are true, or which of the following has a coastline? So you should know there are 9 states and 4 union territory that have a coastline. Gujarat, Andhra Pradesh, Tamil Nadu, Maharashtra, Kerala, Odisha, Karnataka, West Bengal, Goa, Daman and Diu, and Puducherry Island, Andobar and Nicobar Island, and Lakshadweep Island. Now, what is the whole topic about? Let's understand the jurisdiction of the ports. There is an entry 27 in the union list that mentioned that ports declared by or under law made by the parliament to be major port, including their delimitation and the constitution and the powers of the port, is the responsibility of the center. That means under entry 27, whichever the ports have been declared by the law, they belong to center. That means center has the authority to govern them. Those ports that are not a part of entry 27 of the union list, they are under the jurisdiction of the state. So respective state assembly have the power to legislate. There are 12 major ports and 187 non-major ports governed by Major Port Trust Act 1963 and Indian Ports Act 1908. Very, very important. Major Port Trust Act 1963 and Indian Port Act 1908. What are major ports? Major ports are those included by the union government. The union government, under the provision of Indian Ports Act 1908, declares a port as a major port. And once the port is declared as a major port, it comes under the control of union government. The problem is that there is no criteria to be mentioned to be declared as major port. It is up to the union government that they can declare any port as a major port, any port as a major port. What is the problem? There is a little problem. We call that as anomaly. Deen Dayal Port in Kandla, Gujarat, a major port, handled 123 million tons of cargo in 2022, whereas Mundra Port, a non-major port in the same state, have handled 137 million. So a bigger port is not a major port, a smaller port is a major port. That's the problem. Mundra should be a major port, right? But Mundra is not a major port. Although it is handling more number of cargo, more tons of cargo than the Kandla port. That's the reason that there is a anomaly. The center cannot declare Mundra as a major port, as if they declare Mundra as a major port, then it would become under the center jurisdiction. But center is not doing it purposely. They are keeping it under the state, right? The difference between a major port and a non-major port lies in the ownership, control, and management. It's not related to cargo volumes or port facilities or connectivity. The center can declare a port a major port, even they may have a more number of cargo. This is the problem. There is a lot of anomaly, right? We should develop some system, right? On what basis we are declaring a major port a major port? If you're declaring a port as a major port, then there should be some system. When we don't have a system, there is a lot of problem that is getting happen. Let's look at few more examples. New Mangalore Port was declared as a major port on May 4, 1974, before even completion of the project. Jawaharlal Nehru Port in Navi Mumbai was declared a major port in 1982. However, it started working in 1989. That means major port has nothing to do with cargo. It's all up to the center to decide. Let's take another example. The functioning of Kamrajar Port is entirely different. It was declared as a major port in March 23, 1999. Incorporated under Ennur Port Limited as a company under Companies Act. It became a very famous port, was very successful, right? 31 million tons of cargo was handled with just 102 employees. Now what happens? With the Major Port Authorities Act that came into picture, all other ports will emulate the Kamarajar port. With the enactment of this act, the Indian port scenario will completely change. 11 major port trusts will be transferred into post authorities. We will not allow any trust or anything. We will create a port authority. Two major changes we are doing it. Please understand, very, very important for your prelims. Change number one, landlord port. The transformation of these port will be as a landlord ports. It will leave all cargo handling to the terminal operators in the private sector. And this is a practice that happen in US and European Union. Now it will be not under the control of state government or central government or a port trust. It will be completely given to the private place. And they will become public limited companies. The port authorities will transform into public limited companies, or those companies that are open to the public will be listed even share market in the future, so that they completely work independently and efficiently. No interference of the government. They are completely a public limited. Since they are public limited, they can get loans, take management decision, become speed and efficient, and will have a lot of commitment towards generating profits. So they will not be more under the government control. Clear? Very, very important. Okay, that Indian, the Major Port Authorities Act 2021. Next topic, pretty small but very important. Government is focusing now towards secondary and senior education. Okay, it is a high class act. It appeared in Economic Times on 18 June. That's why it is very, very important. Keywords: right to education, gross enrollment ratio, UNESCO, Samagra Shiksha, Nishta, and are sustainable and socio-economic development goals. Let's try to understand. 15 lakh school, 25 crore student, and 89 lakh teacher. India has about 15 lakh school, 25 crore students, and 89 lakh teachers. And under Sarva Shiksha Abhiyan launch in 2021, it has pushed elementary education have become a tool for implementation to Right to Education Act. Educate and raise the masses, thus alone a nation is possible. Very important for essay. Some nowadays they are only giving quote. You have to write for 125 marks. What have been our major achievements? Nationally, about 98% of the rural habitation have primary school within a distance of 1 kilometer. The gross enrollment ratio at the primary level is 100%. At the upper primary level, it is improved from 75 to 87%. Now, national education policy aims to achieve 100% gross enrollment ratio. How does education help? Education can raise income substantially. As per UNESCO, every additional year of education can raise an individual income by 10%. Hence, the country's economic productivity depends upon the number of educated workers. Highly educated manpower. You look at as per Organization of Economic Development and Corporation, more than half of the GDP growth is directly related to labor income growth among the secondary and higher educated individuals. Employers pay almost twice as much as 45 to 54-year-old worker with senior and higher education person. That means if you are more educated, you will get double the income. What has government done? Government started Samagra Shiksha Abhiyan to increase access to secondary level. Samagra Shiksha scheme was launched in 2018-19. Idea was universal access to education, both to pre-primary and senior secondary. Under Samagra Shiksha, transport facilities from elementary to secondary classes have been increased. Now they'll be getting 6,000 rupees per child per year where the schools are not available. It also proposed to identify out of the school children in the age group of 16 to 19. in a support of up to 2000 rupees per child per grade so that they can complete their secondary and senior secondary school. This is possible through National Institute of Open Schooling, that is NIOS. NISTA. NISTA stands for National Initiative for School Heads and Teacher Holistic Advancement at the Secondary Level. National Initiative for School Heads and Teacher Holistic Advancement at Secondary Level. It is to provide capacity building training opportunities to teachers to improve the quality of education. Government of India aims to provide 100% information, communication, and technology coverage at the school level. It also proposed to upgrade all Kasturba Gandhi Balika Vidyalayas up to class 12th. We also aim to provide vocational education to 15,000 schools to promote integrated skill-based education. Taking more children towards senior secondary level is an essential to ensure higher gross enrollment ratio in higher education. And that is the conclusion. For holistic development, secondary grade student, flexibility and choice of the subject should be given. This enables students to choose from the subject that they want, physical, vocational, or art and culture. The 4 years of secondary education will enable the student to gain greater depth and critical thinking and allow them to design their own life plans. That is about this particular article. Okay, that's up for today. Thank you for listening patiently. Goodbye. Take care. For short current affairs, follow our another video where we are uploading short current affairs video. Here we are only updating about editorial video. Okay. Thank you. Goodbye. Take care.